with it. I love that song. There are times when I'm dancing around the house singing, roll with it, baby. And I think, where did that come from? And I realize where it did, right here. That's what I sing when I'm challenged, which occasionally does happen. And this month, the theme for the month is from vulnerability to empowerment with the science of mind. So, has anyone ever felt that kind of a challenge? Felt vulnerable at any point in time in their life? Oh, maybe. Now, I'm not talking about that kind of vulnerability that we want to experience in a relationship where we're willing to be open and share our deepest, darkest secrets with somebody else. I'm not talking about that kind of vulnerability. I'm talking about the original meaning of the word vulnerable, which is to be susceptible to physical or emotional harm. So have you ever felt susceptible or even felt like you were experiencing that and thus felt vulnerable? Maybe you've been victimized in some way. And what about spiritual vulnerability? Has anyone ever been taught that they were at the whim of an angry or judgmental God? Some of us were taught that. Maybe we were taught that we were unworthy for some reason. And have you ever been told that you should just have blind faith, just turn it over to God, and all of a sudden you felt vulnerable in regard to what the future might bring or hold for you? All of the above. Sometimes I think our present states or feelings of vulnerability come when we turn our power over to our past. When we turn our power over to our past. If you think about the words that Martha read for us of Ernest Holmes, he said, faith is not a force or a power over, and faith isn't blind. Faith is spiritual conviction. Spiritual conviction. In fact, I'm going to give you a few of those words again. Pure faith is spiritual conviction. We should consistently vitalize our faith by the knowledge that the eternal is incarnated in us, that God goes forth anew into its creation through each one of us, and that in such degree as we speak the truth, the Almighty has spoken. Sounds a lot like the great and powerful Oz has spoken. Well, when we think about the great and powerful Oz, we think about somewhat of what he was doing was a fraud. The bravado was a fraud. But the actual lesson and message underneath that entire story was not a fraud. If we think about it, underlying that message, the scarecrow wanted a brain, the Tin Man wanted a heart, the lion wanted courage, and Dorothy just wanted to go home. She wanted to feel like she belonged somewhere and that she was important to someone, that she mattered. And the truth was that they already had all those things within them. And it was that great and powerful Oz that created the conditions that allowed them to discover that about themselves. And he was the one that pointed it out to them. So the truth is, we already have all those things within us. When we speak our truth with spiritual conviction, we find that all the wisdom we need, we are connected with that one mind. That one mind thinks in and through us. That we have all the love we could ever want. Our hearts are filled with love, and we allow that to move forward. That we have all the courage we could ever need to face any condition that's brought into our lives. And of course, we're always home when we really allow ourselves to feel that. We matter. We are important. And it's all already within us. Ernest Holmes also said, our thought makes our world and peoples it with our experiences. Our thought makes our world and peoples it with our experiences. So what are we thinking? What kind of thoughts are we allowing to create those experiences in our world around us? Are there still ways that you're turning your present power over to your past? Are there still ways that you're believing that your power is out there with Oz, something else that needs to give it to you? that somehow you have to go and beg for it from the great and powerful Oz? Or do you realize already that it's within? Note also that Ernest Holmes said, "We shall often need to know that the truth which we announce is superior to the condition we are to change." The truth that we announce is superior to the condition that we are to change. He didn't say the truth that we whisper about or the truth that I just think about, actually. He said the truth that we announce. Do you feel the power in that, the difference between just thinking about something and announcing it as our truth with that spiritual conviction? Again, Ernest Holmes also said, because we fail to realize that principle is not bound by precedent, my favorite line of his ever. Because we fail to realize that principle is not bound by precedent, we limit our faith to that which has already been accomplished. We limit it to what's already been accomplished. That's our past. Precedence is our past. And principle works on our lives and is not bound by any of that. I always like to let that think in a little bit. So how is it then that we might be giving over our present to our past? So let's try something. Take a moment to just think about any situation or time when you did feel like you were vulnerable. Think about a time when you might have felt victimized in some way. Maybe you still do. Maybe you're still feeling vulnerable to something, whether it's in the present or in your past. And as you think about what that is, imagine a scale or a line from 1 to 10. How do you feel, 1 being awful and 10 being great, as you're thinking about being a victim or being vulnerable? Where does it fall on that scale of 1 to 10? And now think about the words that you were using to tell yourself about that story. Think about the way you told the story to yourself as you brought up that memory or that thought. Were there any words that were blocking essentially the most powerful aspects of your truth or who you are? Holmes saw our power in our thoughts and our words. So what God qualities need to be released in order to unblock due to those thoughts that we have that are connected to feeling vulnerable? And how can we move from that into feeling empowered? Is there anything that we can do to move ourselves from vulnerability to victimhood? I don't know, is there anything in this room that might help? Oh my goodness. What's in here? Oh, look at this. Heads up, catch. All right. Pass it along. Pass it along. Pass it along. There we go. Look at this. Oh, another one. Ah, more. Catch. Pass it around. Pass them around. Look at these amazing. Oh, is that the last one? Okay, pass them around. Pass them around. Okay, yay. All right. Now, from 1 to 10, how do you feel? Weird. Okay. If you were to say the lack of joy and then joy, 1 to 10, have you moved a little bit up the scale? Could you feel a change in the room? What caused that change? What caused an immediate experience of joy? What would we call it? Play. Play. Isn't that amazing? So how many of you believe that a spiritual path is a serious thing? Oh, how many of you are trying to get serious about your spiritual practice? So what if I told you that maybe it's time for us to change our thinking about this a little bit? And that, well, my question was, is play and playfulness a God quality? Well, you all are saying yes, but I looked in the concordance and Ernest Holmes never used the word play in that way. He didn't talk about playfulness. But what he did talk about many times was joy. And what did we just demonstrate was a way to bring about greater joy? Play. Last month, we talked about alleviating suffering and having compassion. And one way I think we can do that with people is to play, create environments where people get to play. Now, I don't know if I'm just being irresponsible, but recently I found some information in regard to play, and it helped me to decide that maybe play is different than what I've always imagined. So I want to share with you. I just found this book, Sustainable Health, and it's by Susan L. Roberts. She got her Master's of Divinity at Harvard Divinity School. She also is an occupational therapist, a nutritionist, and a sustainable health coach in Queens, New York. And in here, she wrote several times that she discovered at Divinity School, beliefs create thoughts, thoughts create emotions, emotions create actions, and actions create health. Now that sounds a lot like science of mind, doesn't it? But what was new to me in here was all that she had to say about play. And I want to share with you just a bit. I wanted to read the whole chapter, but I knew you all didn't want to sit through that. She says, play keeps us healthy, and most of us don't get enough of it. I never knew how to say it, ethologists, those who study animal behavior, the big word means that, define play as any voluntary, enjoyable activity that does not lead directly to survival behaviors such as getting food or offspring. And they have documented that these behaviors take place in mammals, fish, reptiles, and birds, which I thought was pretty amazing. It appears that play keeps us regulated and able to devote ourselves to growth, health, and restoration so that when necessary, we have the strength, flexibility, and stamina to either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And those are the 4 things she says are necessary for survival. Play keeps us ready to protect ourselves if ever necessary. Those 4 things were fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And play is how we stay ready to do that. All mammals play. Young mammals learn how to develop physical skills, solve problems, and get along with others from their games. Adult mammals play to maintain relationships and to discharge stress. Play keeps our bodies fit, our minds active, our social relationships flexible, and our spirits high. So, what I realized is that play is important. It's a part of, and she talks about in here, it's part of how we evolved. It's how we found a way to survive. The ones that were more playful were more fit and were more able to survive. And so she said also in here that playful interactions that build relationships release another happy hormone, oxytocin. We get oxytocin bursts within relationships with people and other animals that we trust. A researcher named Stephen Porges called the way we co-regulate in a relationship with a trusted companion something that all mammals learn how to do. It's called play. Yeah. Oxytocin has enabled us to improve our survival odds in cooperative groups. So she listed all kinds of different things throughout that chapter that play actually enhances, and all of this has been documented. Play improves academic test scores. In fact, when Ariel was getting ready to take her math test, I told her what I finally figured out to learn algebra is I started seeing it like a puzzle. I just do it for fun. Can you believe that? All of a sudden, it's like, wait, I want to do this. I want to keep factoring. This is fun. And she said that actually helped her as she thought about it as a puzzle or something that was more like play than hard work and something we had to learn. It improves job productivity. It improves social relationships. It reduces biochemical markers of stress. And we all know that stress is part of what creates the issues that as we get older, we get to deal with. So we want to release stress. It increases endorphins and dopamine, those things that make us feel good, as well as other positive health benefits. It alleviates emotional pain. And it decreases addictive behaviors. They've actually researched that. And it helps us to learn. Ernest Holmes says, if we wish to come to Spirit for the healing of our wounds, let us come in peace and with spontaneous joy, for Spirit is joy. And so that said to me, even though he didn't use the word play, that what helps to create that feeling of joy is play, and that's how we approach Spirit as we look to heal ourselves. So I would say, just like you all did, that play is a God quality. If it's that much a part of who we are, if it's that much a part of what's helped us to evolve and survive, it has to be a God quality. One of the sub-chapters in this chapter, she called Play and Mental Letting Go of Stress. And she suggested a playful meditation, and I want to share that with you. She calls it Watching the Wind Blow. Yeah, and we have a lot of wind here, yes. And she said, if you can get outside, you can do it outside, and if you can't get outside, sit next to a window so you can see outside, and watch the wind blow through the leaves, watch the birds floating on the wind, watch whatever's blowing along the ground because of the wind. And she said, what this actually does is lets our eyes do what they're supposed to do, which is they respond to movement outside. They're not made to look at a screen and move steadily in a certain way, but our eyes are meant to be attracted to movement and move around. And as we do that, not only is it a form of meditation, but it's healing for our eyes. So she said, 15 minutes a day, watch the wind blow. And she said, you might need to breathe through those feelings of I'm not doing anything, or breathe through what triggers you to say, I need to get up and go do something, and just know that watching the wind blow is a form of play for the mind, and it's also meditative and healing. So like I said, for me, play and being playful has been a challenge a lot of my life. I had a coach many years ago. I was the manager of several teams when I was in college. And the coach kept telling me, you've got to learn to bend at the knees. And that meant, be a little more flexible and lighten up. And she tried to get a bunch of us started in a pillow fight. And that was, whoa, for me, a pillow fight in a hotel room when we're traveling, oh my gosh, But she wanted me to start playing. And then later, as I was working toward adopting my son and finally brought him home, my therapist, who I was working with at the time, said, hopefully your son, will teach you how to play. She recognized, too, that I needed to learn how to lighten up and quit being so serious about life. And he actually did. When I was raising my son, play became how we did a lot of the chores. We played basketball when we threw the toys into the box to clean up at night. We played basketball at the ballpark when there was trash all over, and he would pick it up and throw it into a trash can, and we'd say, basketball, get the basket, and he loved it. And all these people were like, how do you get your kid to do that? I'm like, we're playing basketball. Doing dishes became water play. We got to play with bubbles and watch how water poured through a sieve and how you could pour it from one thing to the other. Now, what I had to get comfortable with is that chores took a little longer while we were playing. We didn't just get in there and do the dishes and we were done. We played and we made it fun. And as he got older and had to learn long division, he was struggling with the steps for long division. So I created a song that sang how you were supposed to go through all the different steps. And we'd sing that song, and that helped him remember how to do the process of long division. So I want you to know that game night is now part of your spiritual practice. It's not just an extra fun, frivolous thing that we're doing here at the center. We're getting together to play, to build relationships, and to help ourselves survive as a community, so to speak. This is part of who we are. So, what if the hokey pokey is what it's all about? If you want to stand up, you can. You can do it in your chair, but put your right foot in, put your right foot out, put your right foot in, and you shake it all about. Turn around, turn. And you do. That's what it's all about. Come on, try your hand. Put your left hand in, put your left hand out, put your left hand in, and you shake it all about. Twirl it. Do the hokey pokey, and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Woohoo! Now, how do you feel on that scale of 1 to 10? 10? We got a 10? We're getting further up the scale. I'm going to invite you to say after me what Ernest Holmes instructs us to declare. Everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. Everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. So consider, as you change your thinking, as you think it, and as you say it, or as you announce it with spiritual conviction, also consider play it. Think it, say it, play it. Bring some play and excitement into your life. Roll with it. That's right. Sing that and sing it throughout the day. I now realize that this thing that I've been struggling with much of my life is actually a tool that can help move me from feeling vulnerable or feeling down into a greater experience of joy. And when we talk about play, she also says in this book, children with unstructured play rarely sustain the types of injuries involved in organized sports. As soon as we start to worry about outcomes, play becomes something else, work or punishment. So we want that unstructured, or we want to play in a way that we're not worried about who wins and who loses. We're just having fun. So joy and play now, for me, is going to be a tool to help me heal and move on into different experiences in my life. I know I've shared many times, but this was a real turning point for me when Reverend Sam said, if you're not experiencing joy, you're not in alignment with God. And when I heard that and realized I couldn't say I was experiencing joy way back then, and here I am a minister, I'm supposed to be in alignment with God. Whoa, what did that mean? I needed to make some changes so that I could experience joy. And I have to admit, too, I was a little baffled by the word joy. I understand happiness. I could say I'm happy or I'm content. I'm good. I'm fine. How many of us say I'm fine? I'm fine. But joy seemed like something more to me. And as I started thinking about doing all of this and imagining how this was going to go, I found the playful part of me was moving me up the scale of joy. I started to understand how that felt, and it was pretty exciting. And I realized, too, that as we increase our joyful experience, that we also begin to feel more empowered. Imagine now stating your spiritual truth from a place of feeling joy. How different that feels. We can ground ourselves through play and then speak with spiritual conviction out of a place of the joy that play creates. Religious science has opened me up to being more joyful and thus more playful. So what I know now is that a spiritual path or a spiritual practice is both. It's serious in that it's important. And it can be playful, fun, joyful, and empowering. Play played a vital role in our survival and evolution of many species, including us as humans. So have fun, darn it, and play. Vow to stop giving your power over to your past. And as you rethink your past, as you find a new way to tell the story that comes from a different place, as you change your thinking, so to speak, as you think it, say it, play it, and let that joyful experience empower your life. And so it is.